Hello friends, today I will be discussing on the topic IPO return, considerations for the company who wishes to go for the IPO. In this video, I will be discussing on all considerations which are required to be considered who has a dream to go for IPO. So I will be discussing one by one, and on my screen a slide will be presented so that everybody are on the same page. So as we know that till September 2024, the market was on a bullish trend and everybody wishes to go for the IPO. But after September, as we know that the market has reversed its reaction and have started to go down, and in this period from October to March, if I say, very less IPOs have come. But still there are companies who wishes to go for IPO, and there are opportunities in future when the market will be good. Obviously they can go for the IPO, they can consider for the IPO. But the key things which needs to be kept in mind before going for the IPO, today we will be discussing that one by one. I will be discussing some considerations one by one, so that one who wishes to go for the IPO, the company who wishes to go for the IPO should keep in mind these considerations before go for the IPO. So my first consideration will be developing your equity story. A person or a company who wishes to go for an IPO should develop an equity story which can describe its performance in the future. A story should depict how they are going to increase their operation, how they are going to increase their basically profit, EBITDA and revenue. So this is very important consideration which one should think of it before going for an IPO. Equity story, we say that. And secondly, they should, in the story there should be some element which can distinguish him from its peers. So this is very important. In the equity story, these two things should come out clear and loud. So let's take an example. There is a story of a company. A company should make a story that in the future they are going to make the capital expenditure and they are going to increase their order book so that they can increase their revenue. So currently, as of now, the company is having a revenue, but all the fixed costs, let's say, they are not being absorbed. But when the operations will be at a high scale, for example, if there is an increase in the order books or increase in the orders, then the fixed cost may get fully absorbed, and which may be resulting into the more EBITDA the currently the company is earning. So this kind of story they need to develop. They need to develop a story which can relate to the persons and which can relate to the marketing strategy, which can relate to the strategies, which can lead to the increase in the revenue, increase in the EBITDA, and correspondingly increase in the PBT accordingly. So the first consideration I will again reiterate, because this is a very important consideration: developing your equity story. There should be a story behind the company who wishes to go for IPO. The second important consideration is financial and operation readiness. There should be a strong financial control environment in the company beforehand. So a company who wishes to go for the IPO should have developed a internal control framework strong, because a company who wishes to go for IPO are either private companies or small SMEs companies who wishes to go for IPO. So in the always a small company, a promoter driven companies, a control environment is weak. So one should think of it and one should give a thought how to streamline the processes, how to make their internal financial control system a strong one. So they should develop a system where they should document all the processes in detail one by one. For example, order to cash, procurement to pay, and the third one could be FSCP, direct taxes, indirect taxes, and the sixth one could be financial fixed assets, payroll, cash and bank. So these are some processes which needs to be streamlined in a proper manner. A formal document should be prepared, a flow chart should be prepared from starting point to end, what should be the ideal process, and they need to make sure whether the process is being implemented or not. The first thing they needs to ensure whether the process which has been made is the ideal one or not. For that, they can see the industry practices, how the listed companies are doing. They can see, they can search on the internet as well. They can discuss with the consultants, and they can hire the consultant as well to streamline the processing. So this is very important part, because you are in an initial stage to go for IPO. So it's always better, to make the system robust, make the system perfect beforehand. The second one could be, there could be a scenario that IT environment is not strong in case of small companies, SMEs companies, or even in the private companies. I've seen many persons are relying on the tallies as of now. Many persons are there where manual work is going on. So they need to ensure, because when you are developing an equity story, obviously a company plan is to grow their business. When you are in a vision to grow a business, they should make sure the IT system, IT infrastructure is strong enough. So they should have a strong IT infrastructure. The manual work should be reduced as much they can, and they should go into the automation mode, so that in future they don't face so difficulties. Because when the company is in the IPO, and when the company once get listed, so it's very difficult to go for a transition from manual to automated. So it's better to have this transition beforehand, before the IPO. As we know that the ones who wishes to go for IPO, so ideally it takes 18 months to 3 years time, who are at a very initial stage, who is having just a thought of going IPO. So you are having a good time of 3 years, in which you can just plan to develop your IT infrastructure. The third important point in this is compliance framework, because once you are getting listed, lot of compliances, lot of legal framework will be applicable to the companies. So it's better they make sure whether they are complying with the existing laws and regulation, and obviously they should have a plan that whatever new laws and regulation which will be coming in the future, what is the action plan to making sure their companies complying with that. Many times it happens in the small companies, many people take it very casually, but they have to change their mindset beforehand only, that once you are getting listed or public, then you will be under radar. So you have to make sure you are making compliances of everything. And the very important part in this would be, because bankers will also get involved in this, so there will be a due diligence of your system of compliance framework. And if anything they find out that the control framework is not strong, and the governance issue is there, and the compliances are not there, so those things will be highlighted in your prospectus or in your DRHP book, so which can be objected by the SEBI. So this is very important, that legal compliance framework, legally they should ensure that they are complying with everything, and they should also make sure the proper documentation of their compliances in the past history. Because when you will be near to the IPO, there would be a stringent process of the due diligence, where they will be seeing all the secretarial compliances are there or not, whatever acts are applicable, Companies Act or whether Factories Act, whatever acts are applicable, whatever laws are applicable, whether the company is complying with that or not. And if there is a scenario that there could be a scenario that if anything they are not complying with, that will be highlighted. That can be come under the risk factor in the DRHP book, which could be a struggling point for the for making the for taking the approval from SEBI. The fourth important point under this, I think most of it I have covered only, the documentation part. Because I have seen many companies, the small companies and the private companies, the documentation part is very weak. Everything is being done verbally. The documentation or trail is not maintained. I will just take a simple example, like for example, a small company if has to purchase fixed assets, so what he will do, he will call the vendors, 2 3 vendors, and will see what is the quotation of that vendor, and will verbally only they will agree on a price, whoever is giving the lowest price and whoever is giving the qualitative product. So verbally this has been verbally only this has been concluded, and the fixed asset will get purchased by the company. But the challenge here is, if somebody asks, show me the some evidence which can conclude that you have purchased it wisely, and it is not overvalued, and you have not done any fraudulently. So I think if you make just a one pager, that is an assessment on the rates, where you just mentioned that there were three vendors, one, two, three, they have quoted this price, and in spite of calling them, just making sure you are mailing them and asking for the quotations, you have underlying quotations with that assessments. Basis that, just give a two-liner rationale that basis this assessment, the price assessment and the qualitative factors, the management has decided to go for, let's say, vendor A or vendor B basis the prices they have quoted. So such documentation in the small companies are missing, or there could be a case that documentation is there. There could be a case that this process is also followed, but you need to make sure that the robust documentation is there. Because if a small company has a vision to make it large and to make it, at a very high scales, so it will be very better if these changes can be implemented in the initial stage only. I'm telling you, after getting listed, to make this transition, it gets very much difficult. The reason behind it, there are other lot of things which the company is going into, and it's very difficult to get a transition of this. So the change in the mindset from private to public should be there beforehand, before going for the IPO, even before, I would say, 2.5 years, so that in between this time these changes can be done. The second example in the case of documentation could be, I think many times it happens that a person has the authority to approve some rates, so they just verbally approve it on the phone or in the mail. Also they just give okay, we are fine with that. So I think the robot documentation, the best way of documenting this part could be, he should mention the rationale through which he is having the comfort that this rate is fine, and concluding that go ahead with this rate and purchase from that vendor. Only it takes 2 minutes to document the rationale, that I have assessed all the vendors, I have assessed the market, I have seen the market, and this is my assessment. I come to a conclusion that this is the best vendor, from where I can get the lowest price, and that's why I'm going with this vendor. The writing this on a mail or a piece of a paper and making a signature would suffice the purpose. So these are two simple examples I have quoted, but overall the purpose here is there should be a robust documentation in all the areas. When I say that the internal control framework should be strong, there also there comes a documentation part, because the company is having the processes, but it is not being documented on a piece of paper. So making a piece of paper and making a summary of it through a flow chart would be easier for the company. If anybody asked to understand the process, you just need to give a 2 or 3 pager from where he can read it and can understand the process fully. And I'm telling you, whenever due diligence happens, when the external agencies or auditors see these kind of documentation, they get a additional comfort. They get a very additional comfort to conclude the things. So it is very important to make these changes in the initial stage only. The third important consideration, I would say, would be the resource planning. You need to make sure you have a proper resources. The current resources, if you are having, you need to make sure whether they are having the bandwidth or not. You have to make a mindset that additional burden will be going to come in the later stage, when when you are pitching for the IPO. Before 12 months, there will be lot of work which the company needs to do. Even after the IPO, there will be additional work, additional compliances. Quarterly you have to report. So you have to make sure you have the enough bandwidth with the company, because whenever you are recruiting the people, whenever you are recruiting the team, they also need 6 to 8 months time or 4 to 8 months time to get settled. So it is very important, when you are at the midst of IPO, when you are near to the IPO, your team is fully ready. So it's very important to do the resource planning, financial commitment. You should have a mindset that you have to incur some financial cost. Obviously, in the IPO, if you are aware, all